So we're going to be talking about upgrade your applications with the new 19.0 controls. And before we do that, we'd like to look back a little bit and see where we came from with the web app framework. And what we see that in 2012, in DataFlex 17.1, which was still called Visual DataFlex back then, we did our first web app framework. The project actually started out as the integration of the Ajax library into Visual DataFlex, and well, I think it turned out to be good that we decided to create a whole new framework actually. So the first framework had a basic set of controls. I think they were pretty. It was a nice set. I mean, there was a lot in there, but it was a basic set. And the next version, 18.0, came out in 2014, was a lot of stability improvements, but we also added new controls like new column types for links, dates, images, buttons, so column types for the list and grids. We added the new suggestion form, which was later also added to the Windows environment. We started supporting file uploads with the file upload button and file upload form, and we added the group control. So 2015 we did 18.1, which was actually pretty big. We introduced the mobile touch framework, so we added the drill down model, and we made some changes to the list to accommodate that. So we added touch scrolling to the list, multi-line list rows, the action menus were part of it, breadcrumbs, and well, it's pretty tiny here, but we also did the designer then. So before we only had the previewer, and in 2015 we made that an interactive designer. 2016, 18.2, we did basically stability improvements to the touch framework, so made it more usable, fixed a lot of bugs, and we added the parent combo. So that was probably a smaller one if you look at it like this. And well, for 2017 we have 19.0 coming up. The biggest change in the framework itself is the support for server web properties, and then there is a whole list of new things that we added. We improved touch support. We invented a non-scrolling list. We added a color picker, and well, we'll look at that in a little more detail during the presentation. One of the things we did is we improved the way controls size within the web app framework, and that allowed us to do some nice things like making a collapsible group and make a non-scrolling list. And I'll do a short demo of them actually. So for this demo, I'm actually using the application that we made during the training. I made some adjustments already, but you might recognize this is the application we made during the training with tracks and albums and queries on the Chinook. I think Steven used it as well here. So let's put it like that. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to add a group control to the zoom track view, or I think it was the zoom track, and I'm going to do that. This is select track. Oh my god. Zoom track. All right. So I'm going to add a group control here that will make collapsible, to show the collapsible feature, and also to briefly remind us of how you actually build web applications with the web app framework. So I'm going to open up the class palette. And from the class palette, I'm going to drag in the group control, which is down here under containers. So I'm going to drag that into my application. So now we have a group control. I can change some properties on it, like the caption, which I'll make album. And I'm going to set PBcollapsable to true, which shows up the little minus thingy here. The colors are not that great on the projector, but it's I think when we run it, it will look better. And of course, I need to put some stuff in my group, so I'll drag in the album field. and the artist field. And I'm going to make this start here. Probably make them just both as white, like that. So when I compile this, and I reload my application, I can now go to the track screen, and now we have this group control here on top, and I can actually collapse it, which is the new feature that we added for 19.0, and that's basically it. So this shows how easy it is to change applications, to work with the designer. Just drag things on there, and it will just work. The next thing I plan on doing is showing the web list scrolling feature. To do that, I'm first going to show how it works with the regular scrolling. So going to albums here, and I'm going to select an album. What we see here on the bottom is, I hope you all see correctly, you see the list, and it goes on to the end of the page. So this is basically a scrolling list. So if I select an album that has more items, I think this one has, oh, yeah, it has more items. Well, not enough to scroll it, but you see that you're scrolling the list itself instead of the entire page. We got some feedback that wasn't very web-like. People expected to be scrolling the entire thing. So one of the things we did is we basically refactored the list, and that allowed us to add some new features. And one of them was that we can now turn off the scrolling. So I go to my application, and I'm looking up Zoom album. We see the list here in the designer, and I just turn off PB scroll. And we see that it immediately becomes smaller, and now it will grow according to the data that it gets. So if I recompile this, and I refresh my app, and going back to the same album, we now see that we actually scroll the entire thing. And if we go to a different album, one with less tracks, I think which one did we have? Oh, this one has a lot of tracks. Oh, they all have a lot of tracks. How did I get to pick one first? That doesn't matter. But we see that, yeah, we basically scroll the entire screen now. So that's, I'd say, an improvement in the usability of this screen. So you just set PB scroll and the behavior changes. Same thing with PBcollapsable. You enable it, and then you can collapse the group. PB expanded allows you to influence the initial state, and if you web set it, it will change. The next thing we're going to be looking at in a little less detail is the web floating panel. And the web floating panel is a pretty versatile container that we added to the framework that floats on top of your other controls. It has several modes in which you can use it. You can position it absolutely, so you can give coordinated positioning to it, so it will just stay in the same place. It can actually float by a control, which is a pretty nice feature that we use also in our date pickers and color pickers and things like that. And we see an example of it there on the screen. You see the button, and the panel is floating below it. So if you click that button, it will open up that panel, and you see it floating. You can also set it to stick to the left side of the page and stretch the entire hive. And that allows you to create pretty nice menu systems. And especially if you combine it with another new class, the C-Web menu list, which is basically the list menu that you know from the drill down model. But you can now use it separately as well, and it works with existing menu items. So I'm going to show it first. So basically it allows you to create new menu systems. So if we go back to our application, remember when you had use the standard application, you get this white box if you click this button, and you can change it now into a menu like this that comes up on the screen, and it pushes the web app to the side. And this is the menu list control. See, it behaves just like the menu list that we had in there by default. That's actually part of the web button menu thing. So it's just a new way of navigating and improving your applications. It is now set to actually push the web app away. You can also set it to squeeze the web app so that the web app will become smaller if you open the menu, or less wide. But I would say you probably only want to do that on bigger screens, and that's probably something you want to use website responsive for, to make that work on desktops only. So we can also do that right now. So I'm going to go to the webapp.src, and here should be a panel somewhere. The thing is, it doesn't work that well in the designer yet. We have to work on that, but you can find it here. So here's the header panel, and here we have our floating menu panel. And already put the line in. Here it says PE position is being set to FP float left squeeze web app, so it's squeezing the web app by default. But website responsive PE position or tablet portrait basically tells it that on tablets or smaller devices, because website responsive is depending on is working like an inheritance structure. So if you set it for a tablet, basically the mobile devices will inherit that as well. So you website PE position to FP float left push web app, which is what we were just seeing. So if we go back to our application, now we're seeing that it pushed the web app away. If I close it and I make my screen bigger, we will see that it actually squeezes the web app. So it just takes the space from the web app, and you can still use the web app on the right now. You can still use it, just do things here, while the menu stays open. If you close it and you make the screen smaller again, it now pushes the web app, and that basically disables the web app. I was planning on typing this code in, but apparently it was already there. So that's basically some alternative navigation options. We'll be seeing the floating panel in another demo as well later on, if I have the time for that. Yeah. Another new control that we added is the Accordion Container. The Accordion Container is something that has been requested a couple of times, and basically it is you could see it as a vertical tab container, and but you can also have it open multiple cards at the same time. You actually implement it like a tab container, so you just put in an Accordion Container control, you put in cards in there, and in the cards you can just put the controls. So I'm going back. I actually implemented that on the customer screen, which we So here's my my customer screen, and down here we see the card container, and it's actually set to allow multiple ones to open at the same time. So now I can expand these, and we see that it opens up the employee part. If I click it again, it will close, and if I click close this one again, we see that it will close as well. You can also configure to only have one card open at the same time. So if you use that checkbox, it will do that. So now it should have only one open at the same time. Yeah, should make my screen a little bigger. So now you see it closes the one that's open, and actually set it to auto hide, which basically means that it will pick the highest card from that point on, and it will less jumpy, because it now has determined that the other cards are higher than this one. So it adds some extra white space here to keep everything in the same spot. So basically you're fixing the control. And the other one is going to be a bit harder to demo. So it's kind of like a plug and play thing. If I zoom out a little, it should probably work. It with PB fill height. Now it just takes the space that is available there on the bottom. So if I make my browser window smaller, we see that it adjusts accordingly. So it fills the height that is available underneath there. So these three checkboxes are basically mapping to properties on the control. So there's PB multi-open, PB fill height, PB auto height are available on the control. So that's the card container. What you also might have noticed is that the checkboxes look different. New in 19.0 is also the possibility to style your checkboxes. Basically, it works using an extra pseudo element that's added and that you can make look like a checkbox, and that allows you to style the checkboxes consistently across all the different browsers, because that's one of the things with checkboxes. If you use the regular native checkbox, it's different on each platform, different on each browser, and you have no control over how it's looking, so you cannot really style it well. On the left there, we see the default checkbox of the flat touch theme. This is the default radio button for flat touch theme. So the flat touch theme styles the checkboxes. The other themes will still have the native checkboxes. And the ones in the middle are checkboxes with a flip switch style applied. So by only using CSS, you can make it look like a different control, like the flip switch style things that you see on mobile devices. Yeah. Yeah. No, those are I think only in the flat themes, so that flat desktop and flat touch. Yeah. So that's actually a good question. You was asking whether it was supported in all themes. No, the flip switch style is only available in the flat themes. So. This is the color picker that we added, and I think the next slide or the one after that will show why we developed it. Yeah, just a nice handy control that you have now. It's pretty comparable to how we did the date picker. There's two versions of it. If you use the web color picker, you will just get a color picker in line. If you use the form, you get a little form, and if you click on the color, it will update. It will pop up a little floating panel that allows you to pick the color. It actually supports palettes, so you can add a palette of colors that it will show. And yeah, if you want to let your user pick colors, then you have a way of doing that now. And this is one thing, and I want to visit briefly because I'm thinking that I'm running out of time here. This is an application that we developed last summer that allows you to easily change the colors of the flat touch themes, and it is an online application. So I'm going to open up a new browser window and see styler.dataaccess.eu. I hope my internet is working. Yes, there it is. It did log me in automatically. You log in with your data access ID, for which you can sign up at dataaccess.eu. And it allows you to create your own theme, and basically you start off by clicking choosing a basic theme. Our designer at Data Access Europe has predefined these as being nice starting points. So let's go with pastel. We click it. We see that now the application changes color, and I can actually adjust that with the color picker. This is the color picker, by the way. And now we have a different color. You can save it and give it a name, or you can open ones that you already saved before. It is saved on our servers, so it's basically in the cloud, and it's attached to your login. And I created one for Synergy. And well, the final step is you can download the theme, you give it a name, and it will generate a zip file for you that you can just download, and you extract that into your workspace, and it will just work. I wanted to do a full demo, but then I found that we didn't update this for 19.0 yet, so this is an 18.2 theme. So we'll do that shortly. So that's the styler. Then I want to show the highlight column. We already used it during the training, and I made an example that combines the floating panel, the suggestion form, and the highlight column, and it basically allows you to do like a custom suggestion form. So I put it here on my dashboard. So if I search for Queen here, we see that we get a pop-up that shows us search results, and you can actually use the keyboard to select one, just like you do with the auto suggest. And yeah, if I press enter, it will go into the screen showing that album. So it also demos the no results thing of the web list, the placeholder. That also works fine if you turn off the scrolling. So what you see here is that the height of the floating panel is actually determined by the height of the list, which is determined by the height of the amount of data that's in there, basically. So yeah, you can just type anything. I keep going back to Queen, but there it is. So how did we build this? Actually, what you're looking at is the form itself is a suggestion form, but we turned off the display using a new option that's called PB show results. We turned that off, and then we're handling some events, mainly the on find suggestions event. And in that event, we're showing the floating panel, and the floating panel contains a web list that is seeded with the data that we get from a basically, I think it's a stored procedure that we have on SQL. Is it time? Oh. All right. That we have on SQL, and yeah, that all works together nicely. One probably pretty low-level feature that we added to the web list is the ability to set what we call a key body. So there's a property under PHO key body, and that's actually being set to the form control. So what the list does is it hooks into the key handler of the form control. So the focus is still in the form. Well, I thought we solved this with the new connector, but so you can just select it, and the list responds to the key handlers of the form. So that there are these three components working together. The column highlight, or the highlight column, just highlights the search results. So you just put in a few keywords and it will highlight it automatically for you. You use that during the training as well. And then last but not least, we extended our touch support. So we already had the touch scrolling on the list, and now we also have the new swipeable cards. We already had the card container, and now you can actually swipe from one card to another. And if you combine that with the CSS class with bullets, it will show bullets at the bottom of the card container, indicating on which card you are. So I applied that to the dashboard. So the dashboard is built up from 3 cards now, and we see the bullets here. The orange one indicates the current card that we are on, and if I swipe, it will go to the next card, and I can swipe back and forth, and it actually does a little bouncy thing to indicate that there's nothing left. So you can drag it and release it. So yeah, this is the swipe option on the card container. It is basically the card container didn't really change. We just added a property PB swipe cards. And if you set that to true, you can swipe the cards. So straightforward.
If you're not on a touch screen,
Yeah.
the only way you can go is the bullets or
Yes. Yeah. The question was, if you're not on a touch screen, how do you do it? Yeah, you can indeed click the bullets, and that will change cards as well. So basically, then it acts like a tab container, like that. So, and if you want to test the swiping functionality and you're not on a touch screen, you can actually use the developer tools. If you go into your developer tools thing. Oh, there it is. Now you get the touch emulation, and you can swipe it as well. So if you don't have a touch screen on your laptop, you can do it like that. And yeah. Stephen already showed this yesterday briefly. We also have the swipe buttons that are new to the web list, and you can just add them in there. Basically, the swipe buttons are just objects that you place inside your web list, and the web list will detect them, and it will show them as swipe buttons. And well, of course, you can click them, and it will do something. What the one on the left here demonstrates is that it also works with the icon classes that we have within our themes. So the touch themes have a whole set of icon classes, and you can just apply them to the button, and it will show like this. So if we have a short look at the source code there, we can see how simple it is. So this is the zoom track view. I'm going to so in the zoom of it is, there is a list component, and we have the columns here. So first we have the image column that we're just seeing. There is a track name, detail button, all that stuff. And then here is a swipe button. So it's O web list swipe button 1 is a C web list swipe button. You set the caption, and you just implement the on click, and you're good to go. You can have multiple in there. So here we have the second swipe button, which actually uses a CSS class called highlight. There is the standard theme has highlight, danger, and if you don't set a class, it will be blue. So and where's the last one? There should be another one in there. Or it has a different name. The delete one here, so the remove button. What it also shows is that there is a property on there, PB position left, which positions it on the left of the list, so you have to swipe the other direction to see it. And this one shows that you can also apply multiple CSS classes by just separating them with a space. So there's web icon delete, which adds the icon, and then there is the danger class, which makes it red. So that's how you do it.
Is there a limit on the number of buttons you put on left or right?
We didn't put in a explicit limit. Of course, there's the practical limit when you run out of screen space. So use it wisely.
Use it for good, not evil.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where they do the mobile thing on this one. Can you link it to the arrows? So
What?
left arrow would actually swipe to the right arrow.
Oh. I didn't think of that. Mark was asking, can you control them with the keyboard? No, you can't, but it's a good idea, I think. Maybe it probably makes sense indeed to have the right and left arrow open up the swipe buttons. So can you remind me of that over the email? Because I'll forget. So that's it. I'd like to thank you for your time, and I'll be back in the afternoon.